Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Rats on Film, the show where a couple of film rats chat about some rumors. On the show today, doing a little, we're doing a Rat Chat episode. Rat Chat was originally conceived of to be a place where we could do movies of the week kind of thing, but also to do topic episodes such as this, and we've yet to do that. So this is our first topic episode.
It's almost like Tim was supposed to record a different episode with us and bailed at the last minute. And we're just happened. Like, it's almost like, I don't know. But I'm really excited, and I prepped a lot for this episode in the last 30 minutes.
So we're doing a little episode. I've got Buck with me today, the James Bond rat. And we're going to do a little bit of a discussion about Denis Villeneuve's Bond movie that's coming out. Not really any information to go off of other than that at this point, but we're going to talk about the speculation. We're going to talk about the things that we hope to see. I think primarily this will end up being a casting conversation.
Yeah.
And, we're just going to have a little chat about it.
Well, I think what's so interesting is we do know a bit, right? We know the producers. It's Amy Pascal and the guy from Harry Potter, whose name escapes me. It's Amy Pascal and David Heyman. That's interesting. We know Denis Villeneuve is directing it, and we know Stephen Knight is writing it. So we have a lot of the main creative team in place.
Yeah, I guess too also it's relevant to say, for anyone just joining us who's not aware, you Buck are a huge James Bond fan, very steeped in the
prefer the term aficionado, lore. But yeah.
Yeah, you're the person I've known in my life who loves James Bond the most. All the movies, very familiar, all the history, you want to know about James Bond watches, talk to this guy.
I'll just give an aside. I find James Bond to be such a satisfying thing to be a fan of, because it spans 60 years, and you really get a history of popular filmmaking, because Bond always reflects the times. Pretty much since the 60s. I think in the 60s, Bond was defining some of the pop culture, but then pretty much from the 70s onwards, Bond was always reflecting it, with an occasional movie like Spy Who Loved Me or GoldenEye or Casino Royale that would peek out and steer the conversation a little bit.
Sure.
But so it's and I think that was the formula that makes Bond so effective. So I'm really curious to see what Amazon cooks up. I mean, they're taking it seriously, which makes me happy. How do you feel about Denis directing a Bond film?
He's undeniably a great director. He's made a lot of movies that I personally like. Yeah. He hasn't made a movie that makes me scream that it's James Bond, but maybe that's a good thing.
I agree. I'm fine with directors not having work that screams James Bond. I mean, you can go through like the catalog of directors beforehand, and it's not like, even with like Guy Hamilton and Terrence Young, the first two Bond directors, it's not like they did anything specifically that was like a test run. It's not like you need them to direct a Kingsman movie before they can direct a Bond movie, or direct a Mission Impossible before you can direct a Bond. And I always think, even with the Craig era, you can see it with the different directors. They all have a different feel, from Martin Campbell to Mark Foster to Sam Mendes to Cary Fukunaga. I love having different filmmakers' voices in. I think the only thing that I question with Denis is I don't think his movies have a sense of humor. So I think for anybody hoping for a return to the Brosnan or Moore level, or even the Connery level of humor, I don't think we're going to get it. I think if you like brooding James Bond, he's here to stay.
I think that's a really important point to bring up, because I think you do often find people who are fans of James Bond fall on one side or the other of how campy they want James Bond to be. And arguably he's always been a level of camp.
The first movie, Dr. No, almost feels like a parody of itself, and that's the tonal balance that works so well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know that Denis, based on his CV, screams that that's in his wheelhouse, but that doesn't mean that he won't bring that to the table, and I'll be curious to see if he does. I think we'll get into this in a minute, but I think the casting will play a large part in that of who they bring in to play Bond. But I mean, I think that Denis at his strongest when he's doing sort of like the slow burn suspense thriller type stuff. I mean, I think about Blade Runner and Sicario, and even Dune is like a slow burn political thriller to an extent. Prisoners is in the thriller camp.
I think he's such a wonderful filmmaker. He's got such a strong visual style, and I think Blade Runner makes me excited. Like, even though I like the campier, more fun Bond, I still love the Craig era. I'm happy to have I'm just happy to have Bond. I'm just happy to have Bond, and I want the filmmakers to believe in what they're making more than I want them to make my ideal version of it. But the way I felt like he took such great care with Blade Runner in terms of the look, in terms of the performances, in terms of the music. And that gets to it. I'm assuming Hans Zimmer is going to do the music again, and he just did No Time to Die. And I think he did a great score for No Time to Die. Even
Yeah,
though
it's a
I'd
good score.
love David Arnold to come back, I'm excited to see what happens. I just don't like the Dune movies. I can't stand those
I know,
movies.
yeah.
They're just like, I'm like, every time I walk out of them, they're like, yeah, man, isn't that crazy? Like, you don't know how to feel about these characters, and I'm like, that's boring. And then someone's like, well, if you read the book, you'd understand it. And I'm just, I can't. Give me David Lynch's Dune any day of the week. Superior soundtrack, even though I like Hans Zimmer.
If you want some hot takes, go listen to Rats on Dune. It's one of the first episodes we ever did, and Buck's on there. I really like the Dune movies, but I do agree with some of your criticisms of them a bit more. But yeah, Denny's interesting because I think he directs action well. I think he directs suspense well. I'm with you about the comedy thing. It's a question mark, but visually, I'm sure the movies will be phenomenal, or the movie will be phenomenal.
For all my griping about Dune, I will say the sandworm sequence, where the sandworm first appears in the first Dune, and then the scene where they blow up the not AT-ATs with the rocket, when Zendaya has the rocket
Hmm.
launcher. Those two action sequences are probably some of the best action sequences in terms of
Yeah,
staging and, location building and understanding geography. I think in the last like 10 years. I think what I will say, what makes me so excited for a Denny Bond is I think the action is going to be awesome and it's going to be geographically understandable. But who would you cast as Bond? The creative team. Who would you put in this seat? This is what the real chat was supposed to be about.
yeah. It's something that a lot of people have been talking about. And I went online before we started this and just pulled a list of names that I'm just going to read really quick. We're not going to talk about all of them, but it's crazy how many different people are quote unquote rumored to be playing James Bond. I don't know what's real at this point. The last I heard, Jacob Elordi is the front runner. I don't know if that's really true. Here's the list of potential candidates that people are throwing out there: Callum Turner, Jacob Elordi, Anthony Boyle, Josh O'Connor, Tom Holland, Joe Alwyn, Harris Dickinson, Damson Idris, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Riz Ahmed, Barry Keoghan, Nick Holt, Dev Patel, Reza Jean Page. It just goes on and on and on. There's more. And then obviously there's some of the older names that had been thrown around
Henry
maybe a decade
Cavill,
ago.
Idris Elba.
Yep, Henry Cavill, Idris Elba, Tom Hardy. That it kind of feels like that moment has passed, but they're still in the mix for some
Could
people.
Pierce Brosnan come back and do one more? Probably not. But
Can you imagine? He does his own Diamonds Are Forever.
if exact, it's we have a precedent for it. I mean, Connor even came back in the 2000s to do a voiceover for a video game, and then he came back in the 80s too.
Yeah. So okay, who on this list? Who on this list is exciting to you?
Obviously, Dempsey Idris.
That's your number one pick. You
I
think?
think from this list, I think realistically, I think the thing I like about the Broccolis, which is not always true, I love the idea of them picking up more of an unknown than someone. Not
Yeah,
that
I agree.
Dempsey Idris is unknown. He was like in what was F1, like the highest. What it was one of
It
the
was one of the
highest
biggest
grossing
movies
movies of
last
the
year.
year.
Yeah.
So he's not an unknown. He's been on other shows, but I like that he's not. I don't think a Jacob Elordi. I want to see somebody who's more unknown. That's just my taste. Not that I like
I
Jacob
agree with you.
Elordi.
Phenomenal actor, but I kind of agree with you. I think there's a problem that I've been running into a lot in the modern era, and I don't know what this comes from or why this is, and maybe it's just like me being older and being more aware of it. But I feel like
Yeah,
there's.
you are older.
Do I look tired?
Yeah, you look. No,
When
no, you don't,
I
Xander. I'm sorry. We can do that fun podcast banter because it's just the two of us. We don't have to
Yeah,
like
it's just
pause and
us.
take breaks. We can do that. Like we can totally pad out this episode. We were like, oh, this is gonna be a rat
Yeah,
chat, 20 minutes, but this can be like 45 minutes, and we could put an ad in the
yeah. I
middle.
don't know.
Like what?
There you go.
Shadow Warrior? Play it on your phone and have your phone slowed down.
I I feel like when actors get relevant now, they get really oversaturated really fast.
I like those
And
poor
I've
heated
been
rivalry guys. Like they were.
yeah, like I've been incredibly impressed by Jacob Elordi. For me, he's come out of nowhere really quickly. I understand he was on like the kissing booth and stuff like that I just was not on my radar. And I know he's on
Yeah,
Euphoria,
he's on Euphoria.
but I saw him in Priscilla, I saw him in Saltburn, I saw him in Frankenstein, I saw him in Wuthering Heights, like all, pretty close together. I think does a really good job in each of them in different ways, and I think he's a really talented performer. I don't know that I see him as Bond, and I feel like, to your point, he's maybe a little bit too big now for me to buy that. I wasn't really in on Bond until Daniel Craig. He's really my first Bond. I knew about Pierce Brosnan as Bond. That's probably what I would have thought of as a child, but I hadn't seen the films. But I didn't know who Daniel Craig was, so Daniel Craig just like became James Bond to me. And again, I understand he had done some other stuff, but I'm 10 years old when Casino Royale comes out,
But
or
even so,
11 years old.
I don't think like the average moviegoer knew him. He had done Layer Cake, which is, speaking of
Right.
Matthew Vaughn again, Layer Cake's awesome. He was in Tomb Raider, the first Lara
Mm-hmm.
Croft
Yep.
movie. He's in stuff. It's just, I don't feel like he was that household name where I feel like Jacob Elordi really is, especially with anyone under the age of 30, which
Yeah.
isn't us anymore. But see,
We do look tired.
the question is, are the rats still relevant in this time? We're like James Bond.
No.
No, we're probably not.
We aged out, dude. Yeah, we aged out.
I don't feel like it's a great idea to cast a heartthrob, mainly because you go in with that understanding of them as Bond. And two, Jacob Elordi could do fuck anything else right now. I feel like if there's anybody who has a card to kind of like choose his projects, it's Jacob Elordi. I want someone to do 5 Bond films. I don't want,
sure.
and not to say that they shouldn't be able to do other movies in between, but I'm like, I can't imagine Jacob Elordi, unless he's a really big Bond fan, would want to sign on to do 5 Bond films. I don't want to get like
just
a
every other year be
trilogy.
shooting Bond.
Yeah, I don't want to get like a trilogy of Elordi movies.
So you said Damson Idris is your pick. I like him as well, and I honestly don't have that strong of opinion about it. I feel like this is. I have an annoying take about this where I don't necessarily have a strong feeling about who it should be. I just have strong feelings about who it shouldn't be, and that's the most annoying person ever. When like you're like, "What do you want for dinner?" and they don't want to suggest anything. They just want to say, "Not that." I hate that, but that's how I feel about the Bond casting, and I would like Damson Idris. I'm really into the idea of Daniel Kaluuya doing it.
Yeah,
Uh,
Daniel Kaluuya has long
specific
been my thing. I just feel like he might have aged out at this point.
specifically, and this is maybe a really weird take, I love him as Spider-Punk in Across the Spider-Verse.
Yes,
And I would kind of love that energy brought to James Bond, like
I agree.
more of like a chavvy London streetwise James Bond than like the posh James Bond. I'd like to see a different sort of take on that, and I think Daniel Kaluuya has the range to do that. I also think he's got a lot of charm about him, but he also has a real intensity about him. Like, I don't know if you've seen Judas and the Black Messiah, is
He's
incredible in
fantastic
that,
in that
and
movie. Yeah,
yeah, the range that he possesses would be really interesting. And talking again about the tone of Bond, I think you kind of do need to have an actor with some range so
hmm
that you can sort of bridge those tones. You have to have the intensity, but you also have to have the he's going to turn to the camera and wink.
yeah. You got to have the humor.
I feel like Daniel Kaluuya has both of those in his wheelhouse. So, and he looks good in a suit. So I feel like for me, he kind of checks all the boxes. I've only really seen Damson Idris in F1, but from that movie, I think that he maybe does also check all the boxes.
I think he checks the boxes in F1. I like that. I love one. I think he just looks good in the clothes. I feel like he has the swagger in that movie to be
Mhm.
Bond, but I think he also has a lot of he brings a lot of like insecurity and lack of confidence and then posturing. And I kind of like this idea that if we're getting like another Bond reboot, I want to have somebody who can grow into the part. And I think the
Sure,
arc we
sure.
see Demson Idris go on in F1, I think he does the best. I mean, I also really like Kerry Condon, but I think I love F1. Let's just get this out of the way. But I think he just does really good work in that movie. I think you can see a really strong arc for him, and I think you're with him the whole time, even when he's being a dick. And I think
Mhm.
that's a hard thing to do as an actor, to make a
And that's
character
important for
who's
Bond.
being a schmuck empathetic. And I think Demson Idris really does that very well. I think Daniel Kaluuya does that too. I'd be very happy with it. I mean, honestly, those are my top 2 choices right now. I think Daniel Kaluuya might not get it. I feel like they're going to look for somebody younger. But I think you're talking about like what you want from Bond. I actually, to your point, it's like I can give my opinions, but I'm like, I'm also happy to be surprised.
I would prefer to be surprised. I think
Yeah.
that honestly, like if it's none of the names that I just read off on this list, I think I'll be happier just because I'll be like, ooh, what's that going to be?
Yeah. I think that would be exciting. I mean, listen, I'm always down for an Irish Bond after Brosnan.
All right, what about some of the other actors here? Any of them interest you? Callum Turner, Josh O'Connor, Anthony Boyle, Harris Dickinson. Honestly, I think he's maybe the weirdest of that group, but I think Josh O'Connor would be someone that I would like to see. I think he's really impressed me as an actor lately. I think it'd be a pretty different type of Bond.
I would see Josh. I would be down with Josh O'Connor. I would be down with Josh O'Connor.
I really like him, and I think the performance I would point to that makes me go, oh, maybe there's something there is Challengers,
Yeah.
where he really is that full douchebag, but you kind of love him. You kind of are like, yo, this guy rules.
Has
I
James
think about
Bond
the
had a
scene.
threesome in the movies yet? I don't think so.
I
So
don't
we
think
can
so,
bring
and
that in.
we're missing that.
Can Luca direct a Bond film? Is that a wild take?
Maybe.
I feel,
Yeah, I think that is a wild take, but maybe.
I think he would do a great job. I think Denny knows how to direct action. I don't know if Luca knows how to direct action. What would get me really excited is if Denny brings back his Sicario partner, Roger Deakins, because I think
Yeah, dude,
Skyfall is the
100%.
best shot Bond film, and I think Deakins shot Skyfall, and I also think no offense to Hoyte van Hoytema who did Spectre, but I do think the action is better in Skyfall. I think the
Yeah,
cinematography plays
I
into
don't think
that.
that's a hot take at all.
It's not a hot take, but I like Interstellar. I don't want to shit talk Hoyte.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I mean Interstellar's great, Oppenheimer's great. He's
yeah.
another great cinematographer.
What
Didn't
about what
didn't hit
about
as hard
what
as
about Oppenheimer himself? I would love to see him
Killian
as
Murphy.
Bond. Yeah,
Jordan's been trying to manifest that since that was rumored.
it's too late.
I'm assuming like you said he's too old. I kind of would like it. Cause can I say something?
Yeah,
I when Daniel Craig's Bond came out and you got Casino Royale, and it starts with him getting his 00 license, right?
yeah,
It starts with him at the beginning of his career. That was so interesting that it felt like they were going like, oh, this is young, untested, not fully up to speed James Bond. And then 2 movies in, they're like, you're an old man. It was kind of it was kind of silly how they
it
did
was
that. Like they're like,
if
you're.
Skyfall wasn't so good, I would be pissed.
I agree. I love Skyfall, but like it is kind of crazy that they set him up to be like the young James Bond, and then they kind of immediately
Made him
moved
the
past
old
that
James Bond.
for
Yeah.
half his movies. More than half his movies now, right? 3 of his 5 movies are you're old, you
Old.
can't aim anymore, your shoulder doesn't work. But whatever. Maybe they should just lean into that side of Bond. Maybe there is something to be said about starting from a point of, yo, this guy's been doing it for 20 years and like he's tired, but like he's good at what he does. Maybe there's an angle there.
I feel like Bond. It's somewhere. I'm gonna like misquote this, but I think the idea I think Fleming like thought of Bond as like in his early 40s or something like that,
Hmm.
and I feel like you can feel that in the books. Especially, I'm currently reading or rereading Majesties, and you can feel like he's contemplating whether to settle down or not. I feel like they need to be
Hmm.
35 or older, and we got the Bond video game coming out where he can be young.
Right, right. Yeah, I would love Killian Murphy as Bond. I think he would be phenomenal. Just a really, again, kind of like we were talking about earlier. I think he has a lot of range. I think he's got a real intensity to him. He's got the quiet, contemplative acting with his eyes that I think is really, really effective. But also,
Mhm.
he is charming and he can be a lot of fun.
I think he brings a lot. I think in Oppenheimer he's particularly fantastic. I think what I want to see is somebody who's I think my only request, somebody who's with the program, somebody who's excited about making these movies, who wants to be on the same creative train that Denny and Stephen Knight are on, and Amy Pascal like I think where you can feel, I mean, arguably it's led to some very good Bond films, but you can feel Timothy Dalton not quite wanting to be in License to Kill because he didn't agree with some of the direction choices. But I think that's a
Hmm.
great Bond movie. I also think we've had unknowns. Connery was kind of an unknown. Dalton was not an unknown, but smaller. I think Craig is an unknown. But then you've also had,
Lazenby was like a model, right? Like
oh
was
yeah,
he
Lazenby did
wasn't an
nothing,
actor even.
and Lazenby might give one of the best Bond performances. But then conversely, you've had Roger Moore, who played the Saint and was in The Persuaders, and essentially just continued that character for Bond.
Hmm.
You had Brosnan, who was in Remington Steele, and that felt like Bond. Like, and even Craig with Layer Cake, that felt a little Bondish. It's like there's a lot of paths you can go here, and I hope whoever they cast is excited about the character and like reads the books and cares about it. That's all I want. And my last thing I'll say here, I'm talking way too much in this one, but I'm
You're
like,
fine.
he doesn't have to be. I think he just needs to be English, and English and masculine presenting, because I think there's this connection with masculinity in the books. But that's about it. I think it could be anybody else. That's my take. Anything you want to? I mean, the only other thing I really want to see is I want a ski chase. We haven't had a ski chase since World Is Not
Dude,
Enough.
you love a Bonsky
It's
chase.
fucking ridiculous. Craig didn't get a ski chase.
Um, I don't know. I don't know that I have a strong opinion. I want to see something I haven't seen. Maybe not to contradict your ski chase. I want to see something I haven't seen in a Bond movie before. I feel like I like a Bond car chase. I think
Mm-hmm.
No Time to Die had a great one. Maybe, and this maybe is weird as somebody who is a huge fan of something like Mission Impossible or whatever. But honestly, maybe you dial back and you don't need to go as grandiose. Maybe you go back to something like a From Russia with Love, and the climax is in a train car. You know what I mean? It's tension, and maybe that's what Denny will do, because maybe that's where his strengths lie, more so in tension and building suspense and a Hitchcockian style rather than a overt action set piece style. I don't know.
I'm down with that, and it's funny because those early Bond films have action, but I feel like the stunt spectacle didn't really come into play till Majesties with the skiing, and then really
Hmm.
with Spy Who Loved Me with the jump off the cliff. I'm with you on that. I think I need some good action, but I'm okay if there's not, because I think Tom Cruise took it to the logical extreme.
Do you want to end on this? This
Yeah,
is I don't have an answer for this. I'm throwing this at you. What's your title for the movie? You got a Bond title preloaded?
we're trying to think of the books, some of the short stories that they haven't adapted yet. I think the thing that's funny about Bond titles is I think they all sound bad till the movie comes out. Like, let's be honest, like Skyfall, when I heard that title, I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And the movie came
Yeah,
out, and
until
it,
Adele sang it, and you were like,
yeah,
"Yo, this
oh yeah.
slaps."
And I think like even with the Bond game coming out, like First Light, I'm like, I think First Light is not a particularly Bondy title, but there's been so many trailers, and I think Lana Del Rey is singing that song that I'm already okay with it being First
What
Light.
even is a Bond title at this point? They're all over the place. I don't even know what the formula is.
Yeah, there's a title for an unmade Bond film called Reunion with Death, and I don't know if that's a great Bond title, but I feel like there should be something where it's like something death. I like the idea that whatever this Bond movie is not a full origin story, but has some sort of rebirth quality in it, or some sort of under like him locking in as James Bond. I think Reunion with Death, especially coming off No Time to Die, I would actually love if the title references No Time to Die in some way.
I feel like I could see them doing the rebirth thing is interesting. I feel like I could see them doing like something with Phoenix or something like that, like a rise from the ashes type of.
Well, Phoenix Rising was almost the title of Nightfire. Phoenix
See,
Rising
there
is
you
a
go.
level in Nightfire because that's the evil
That
organization.
that's my answer, and my sub answer is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, because that feels like that feels like a James Bond title to me.
There there's
Not at
there's
all
a,
a James Bond movie.
there's a Bond short story that was partially adapted into Octopussy called Property of a Lady. And I think the big titles that have not been used from the books are Property of a Lady, Risico, and 007 in New York. Um,
How did you not pick 007 in New York?
I feel like 007 in New York would be a great title.
You know other movie is not a James Bond movie that but really feels like a James Bond title to me is now who knows what the real title is anymore. I can't keep track, but All You Need Is Kill.
Oh yeah, that feels like a Bond
The
title.
Edge of
Edge of
Tomorrow or Live Die
Tomorrow.
Repeat, whatever the real title is at this point. I know the manga
Edge
is
of
called All You Need
Tomorrow
Is Kill. I
even
don't
sounds
remember if they.
Edge of
Yeah,
Tomorrow
both
could
of
even
them sound
be
like Bond titles.
C'est la vie, such as death, such as death. That's a Bond title.
Such as Death is a very Bond title.
I actually think you know what such as death is should be
That's what you're
the
going with.
yeah, such as death.
Any other closing thoughts about this Denny Villeneuve Bond? Any other speculations or things you're excited about?
What I hope is that Denny and Stephen Knight. I trust their work, and Amy Pascal and David Heyman. They've done big movies. Like it all feels right. But the part about Bond was it was like a family company, and they put a lot of care into these movies. So I hope that this team stewards Bond for future growth and not for a quick but fast time. I just it's like I want more Bond films. I hope they continue that, and I think they can. And I think that, but I think that they should really look at what Broccoli and Wilson have done, even in the last 30 years. I think they've, if you look at Goldeneye to No Time to Die and everything in between, that's a pretty wide range of movies.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was pretty doom and gloom when the news broke. And I think rightfully so. It
I
always
think so
kind of
too.
feels like that when you watch a big corporation take control of a beloved franchise. There's certainly a level of cynicism and skepticism that comes with that, and I
Hmm.
think people are right for that. But I also think at the end of the day, we don't really know what the Amazon reign of James Bond is going to look like until we see it. And at this point, we're going to hope for the best, right?
Yeah, let's be optimistic. I was not when I heard the news.
No, me either. And honestly, I don't really blame anybody who wasn't. I don't think that news comes out and you go, "Ooh, hooray!"
Here's my last request. I feel like in the 60s Bond films and the more Bond films, and even the Pierce ones, I hope this movie's a little sexy and a little weird. Right on the razor's edge of being way too inappropriate for PG. I want that in this. I feel like the Craig films did not have that.
No, I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited for you, and I'm curious to see how it turns out. But I think there's less riding on it for me than there is for you.
Yeah, there's nothing major riding on it for me except my happiness for the next 5 years. I think I've still been depressed since No Time to Die. I'm still in mourning. Last question for you. Who's doing the title song?
Who's doing the title song, dude? I would love it if Alex Turner or Arctic Monkeys did the title song. I
That
I
would be
think I
rad.
think Alex Turner's been building a resume to do a James Bond title song since everything you've come to expect. Someone gave it to him. Honestly, the other one I throw out there is I'd like to see Fontaine's DC do it. I think they'd be another really good shout.
They'd be really cool. I think Lana Del Rey should do one, but it sounds like she's doing the
Yeah, I
video
would love
game.
to see Lana. Yeah, I think she's a good shout as well. If not one of those artists, I would love if they went back to, traditional pop sound for it. We've been in the ballad era for most of the Craig
Since
ones,
since
which I like,
Skyfall.
which I like. Yeah, which I like.
I feel like it
But
was diminishing returns. I mean, I like No Time to Die better than Writings on the Wall, but
yeah,
when they hired Billie Eilish, I got really excited, and then I really do like No Time to Die. I think it's a cool song. Johnny Marr's on the guitar. It's cool,
yep.
but
Johnny Marr rules, dude.
I was hoping for something weird.
Yo, Jay Brecky.
I don't know enough of Jay Brecky, but sure.
I'd be super down to see Jay Brecky do it. All right, hey, thanks for listening to this little rat chat episode. Are you excited for Denis Villeneuve's Bond? Let us know in the comments below who you want to see play Bond, who you want to see do the theme song, what weird shit do you want to see in the movie?
Yeah.
We'll definitely be on the show to talk about it when it comes out, and we'll do some more Bond rankings pretty soon. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye, guys.